The emergency meeting hall on Station Omega buzzed with desperate voices. Representatives from 12 different alien species filled the circular chamber, their various forms creating a strange rainbow of colors and shapes. Some stood on multiple legs, others floated in gravity fields, and a few hung from the ceiling like living chandeliers. But despite their differences, they all shared the same expression of fear. Ambassador of the Council stepped forward on his 6 thin legs. His blue skin had turned pale, almost white with worry. The small crystals on his forehead that normally glowed bright were now dim and flickering. He had been traveling for 3 days straight to reach this meeting, and exhaustion showed in every movement. Friends of the Coalition began, his voice translator making his words sound hollow in the chamber. We face our darkest hour. The swarm has consumed the Meridian system completely. 7 billion souls gone in less than a week. A collective gasp echoed through the room. The reptilian delegate from Prime hissed softly, while the representative from the Hive worlds clicked her mandibles in distress. Everyone had heard rumors, but hearing the official confirmation sent waves of terror through the assembly. Continued, his voice growing weaker. The system fell yesterday. Another 4 billion converted into their bio-soldiers, and now, he paused, struggling to form the words, now they move toward the Helios system. Our scouts estimate their fleet at over 40,000 bioships. General, the military leader of the Coalition forces, stood up. His massive frame cast a shadow over the smaller delegates. The old warrior's face showed the strain of fighting an impossible war. We have thrown everything at them, said, his deep voice carrying the weight of defeat. The finest warriors of the fleet, the advanced technology of the synthetic collective, the psychic powers of the mind touched, nothing works. They adapt to every weapon we use. They learn from every tactic we employ. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. They were not just another enemy to fight. They were a force of nature that consumed everything in their path. Their bioships could repair themselves during battle. Their ground forces grew stronger by converting captured soldiers. Their hive mind consciousness made them impossible to surprise or outmaneuver. What about the humans? A small voice asked from the back of the room. All heads turned toward the speaker. It was Delegate Ra from the Trading Federation, one of the youngest members of the Coalition. Her people were merchants and traders, not warriors, but they traveled throughout the galaxy and heard many stories. General snorted, a sound like rocks grinding together. The humans, they have been in the galaxy for 50 years and have done nothing but watch. They sit in their little corner of space, playing with their primitive computers and refusing to share their military capabilities. But the stories, Ra continued nervously. The traders speak of strange things. Human ships that appear and disappear without explanation, pirate fleets that vanish after attacking human colonies, and their colonies grow so fast, much faster than any other species. Ambassador's crystals flickered with interest. They were known for their intelligence networks, and even they had heard whispers about human activities. Stories that made no sense, tales of impossible victories and mysterious disappearances. We have no choice, said slowly. We must ask everyone for help, even the humans. The debate that followed lasted hours. Many delegates argued against involving Earth. Humans were newcomers to galactic society. Their technology seemed primitive compared to other species. They used projectile weapons instead of energy beams. They built their ships from metal instead of growing them from living materials. They seemed more interested in their computer networks than in developing proper military might. But as the hours passed and more reports came in of movements, desperation won over pride. The vote was close, but it passed. They would ask Earth for help. The quantum communication array on Station Omega had never been used to contact Sol system before. The human government maintained only basic diplomatic channels with the Coalition. Most species considered Earth too backward to bother with regular contact. Dr. Sarah answered the call from Earth's orbital station. She was a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes. Her simple blue uniform looked plain compared to the ornate robes and armor worn by the alien delegates. "Doctor," Ambassador began carefully, "we come to you in our hour of greatest need. The swarm threatens to consume the entire galaxy. We formally request military assistance from Earth." Doctor listened carefully as explained the situation. She asked detailed questions about capabilities, their bioship designs, their hive mind structure, and their conversion processes. Her questions were strange, focusing on things like communication protocols and neural network patterns rather than weapons and defenses. When the briefing ended, Doctor was quiet for a long moment. The alien delegates waited nervously for her response. Finally, she spoke. "We understand the gravity of the situation," she said calmly. "Earth will provide assistance." Relief flooded through the chamber. Finally, they would have help, even if it was from the primitive humans. "How many troops can you send?" General asked eagerly. "We can provide transport ships and supply lines. Even a few thousand human soldiers would be helpful at this point." Doctor smiled, and something in that smile made several delegates feel uneasy, though they could not say why. "We will send one," she said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Delegates jumped to their feet, speaking over each other in a dozen different languages. One human, against a swarm that had destroyed the combined fleets of 3 star systems. "Doctor," said his voice translator struggling with his emotional tone, "perhaps there was a translation error. We need soldiers, many soldiers, that have 40,000 ships." "I heard you correctly," Doctor replied, her smile never fading. "You asked for troops. We are sending our best one." General leaned forward, his massive fists clenched. "Human, this is no time for games. Billions of lives hang in the balance. We need armies, not a single soldier." Doctor looked directly at the general, and for a moment her pleasant expression showed something else underneath, something that made the hardened warrior take a step back. "General," she said quietly, "you asked for help against an impossible enemy. We are giving you exactly what you need. Trust us." The communication ended, leaving the coalition delegates staring at a blank screen. In 3 days, they would discover what Doctor meant. In 3 days, they would learn what humans were really capable of. 3 days later, the coalition staging area near Helios system looked like a gathering storm. Hundreds of warships from dozens of species floated in defensive formations around the command station. The massive dreadnoughts of the fleet cast shadows over smaller vessels. Crystalline ships from the Council sparkled like jewels among the metal hulls. Bioorganic vessels from the Symbiont Union pulsed with internal light. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor displays with growing frustration. His 4 eyes tracked the movements of scout ships at the edge of the system. The enemy was coming, and every hour brought them closer to Helios VII and its 6 million human colonists. The Admiral was a veteran of 30 battles. His hide told the story of decades fighting pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species, but nothing had prepared him for they fought like no enemy he had ever faced. Their bioships healed damage faster than his weapons could cause it. Their tactics adapted in real time to counter every strategy he employed. A communication alert chimed on his bridge. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "long-range sensors detect an incoming human vessel." Turned his attention to the main display. A single ship appeared on the screen, small and unremarkable. It looked like a basic transport, the kind used for moving cargo between systems. Compared to the massive warships surrounding it, the human vessel seemed almost toy-like. "That is their military response," muttered his translator, barely picking up the words. The human ship requested docking permission at the command station. Within an hour, Alien commanders from across the fleet had gathered in the main briefing room to meet Earth's representative. The room buzzed with nervous conversation. Many had never seen a human in person before. The docking bay doors opened and a single figure walked out. He was clearly human, though he looked nothing like what the aliens had expected. No powered armor, no visible weapons, no ceremonial uniform or signs of high rank. Just a middle-aged man in simple black clothing, carrying a plain metal case and a small tablet device. The man stopped in front of the assembled commanders and gave a slight nod. "I am," he said simply. "You can call me the Executioner." General, the Coalition's strategic commander, stepped forward. His massive bulk towered over the human and his 3 arms gestured dismissively. "Human, we expected an army. We face 40,000 enemy ships. What can one person accomplish?" Looked up at the towering alien without any sign of fear or concern. "I am not here to fight them in the way you think," he said calmly. "I am here to solve your problem." The briefing room fell silent. Around the table, battle-scarred veterans of a dozen species stared at this unremarkable human who spoke as if the greatest military threat in galactic history was simply another task to complete. Admiral activated the main holographic display. The 3-dimensional map showed the Helios system in detail. Red markers indicated fleet positions, moving inexorably toward the blue marker that represented Helios VII. "This is what we face," began, his voice heavy with the weight of impending defeat. 40,000 bioships, each one capable of regenerating damage and adapting to our weapons. Intelligence estimates suggest they are bringing their entire 3rd fleet. This is the force that destroyed the Valyrian Navy in 16 hours. Studied the display with the same calm attention he might give to a weather report. He made notes on his tablet, occasionally asking questions that seemed strange to the alien commanders. "What is their communication range?" he asked. "Unknown," General replied. "Their hive mind appears to have no distance limitations." "How many individual are we talking about?" Admiral consulted his data. Estimates suggest approximately 8 million individual organisms across the fleet. And they all share the same consciousness. Yes, that is what makes them so dangerous. Perfect coordination, instant tactical adaptation, no confusion or hesitation in battle. Made more notes, his expression never changing. The alien commanders exchanged glances. This human seemed more interested in taking inventory than preparing for war. Commander of the Psychic Corps leaned forward. Her people were telepaths, capable of reading thoughts and emotions across species lines. But when she focused on the human, she found something unexpected. "I sense no fear in him," she whispered to Admiral, "but also no aggression. It is unusual." General's patience finally ran out. He slammed one of his massive fists on the table, causing several smaller aliens to jump back. "Human, we do not have time for your questions. The enemy arrives in less than 40 hours. We need to know what Earth's plan is. What weapons are you bringing? What ships? What soldiers?" Looked up from his tablet and met the general's 6 eyes. "I told you, I am here to solve your problem. Earth analyzed the threat 50 years ago when we first learned about them. We have been preparing for this moment ever since." "Preparing how?" Admiral demanded. "We see no human fleets, no massive weapon platforms, no armies of soldiers." "Because you are thinking like warriors," replied. "You see a military problem and look for a military solution. Bigger guns, stronger armor, more ships, but humans approach problems differently." He stood up and walked to the holographic display. With a few touches on his tablet, new information appeared on the map. Data streams, network connections, communication pathways that the alien sensors had never detected. "They are not just a military force," explained. "They are a networked intelligence, a biological computer system on a galactic scale, and humans have been studying computer systems for a very long time. Commander suddenly straightened, her psychic senses detecting something new. "Admiral," she said urgently, "I am picking up transmissions from the human ship. Quantum encrypted data bursts to locations throughout human space." "What are you transmitting?" General demanded. Smiled for the first time since arriving, it was not a reassuring expression. "Initialization codes," he said simply. The alien commander stared at him in confusion. Initiative codes? What kind of military operation required initialization codes? Returned to his tablet, his fingers moving rapidly across its surface. "You asked Earth for troops to fight but they cannot be defeated by conventional warfare. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. They heal too efficiently." He looked up at the assembled commanders, and for the first time they saw something in his eyes that made several of them step backward. Not madness, not anger, but certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty. "So we will not fight them," continued. "We will reprogram them." Before anyone could ask what he meant, alerts began flashing throughout the command station. Long-range sensors were detecting changes in the fleet. Ships that had been maintaining perfect formation were beginning to drift. Communication patterns that had been steady for weeks were showing irregularities. Admiral stared at his displays in confusion. What is happening to them? Checked his tablet one final time. "The executioner protocol is activating," he said calmly. "Phase 1 begins now." The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Alien officers rushed between stations, checking and rechecking their sensor readings. The massive holographic display showed the fleet, but something was clearly wrong. Ships that had maintained perfect formation for days were now drifting out of position. Some were moving in seemingly random directions. Admiral grabbed the nearest sensor technician, a nervous whose crystals were flashing rapidly with stress. "Are our sensors malfunctioning?" he demanded. "No, Admiral," the technician replied, his voice high with confusion. "The readings are accurate, the fleet is breaking apart." General pushed his way through the crowd to the main display. His 3 arms gestured wildly as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. "This is impossible. The hive mind does not make navigation errors. They do not lose formation." Remained calm at his console, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that none of the aliens recognized. Data streams flowed across his tablet in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The quantum communication arrays throughout the station were working at maximum capacity, processing information loads that should have burned out their circuits. "What are you doing?" Commander asked, her psychic abilities picking up fragments of the data transmissions. What she sensed made her step backward in alarm. "I can feel something moving through their network, something that should not exist." Glanced up from his work. "I am introducing them to human logic," he said simply. Before anyone could ask what that meant, new alerts began flashing. 3 bioships on the edge of the formation had collided with each other. Not battle damage from enemy fire, but actual collisions, as if they had forgotten how to maintain safe distances. Admiral watched in stunned silence as more ships began showing erratic behavior. A massive biocruiser that should have been leading a squadron suddenly reversed direction and flew directly into its own support vessels. Another group of ships started flying in tight circles, as if trapped in some kind of loop. "This is not possible," General repeated, but his voice had lost its earlier conviction. "The hive mind shares perfect information. They cannot make these kinds of mistakes." Looked up from his console, and the alien commanders could see data streams reflected in his eyes. "General, you keep thinking of them as a military force, but they are not soldiers. They are nodes in a network, and every network has protocols, rules that govern how information flows from one point to another." He gestured to his tablet, where complex diagrams showed branching pathways that resembled neural networks or computer circuits. "For 50 years, While you were building bigger guns and stronger armor, humans were studying how consciousness works, how minds process information, how thoughts become actions. Commander stepped closer, her psychic senses trying to understand what she was detecting. "You are not attacking their bodies," she whispered in growing realization. "You are attacking their thoughts." "Not attacking," corrected, "reprogramming." The main display showed more chaos spreading through the fleet. Entire squadrons were now flying in contradictory directions. Some ships had stopped moving entirely, as if their pilots had simply forgotten how to navigate. Others were accelerating toward empty space, abandoning their assigned positions. Admiral found his voice. "How is this possible? How can you affect their hive mind from this distance?" Made a few adjustments to his console, and new information appeared on the display. The aliens saw something they had never noticed before: streams of quantum data flowing between the ships. Communication pathways that connected every individual organism into their shared consciousness. "Every networked system has the same vulnerability," explained, his voice remaining eerily calm as chaos spread through the enemy fleet. "The same pathways that carry information can also carry viruses, logical paradoxes, self-referencing loops, commands that contradict themselves." He touched his tablet, and the data streams became visible as glowing lines connecting the ships. "We have been studying their communication protocols since the first contact reports reached Earth. Every species in the galaxy sent us data about encounters, battle reports, captured technology, recordings of their hive mind communications." General stared at the human with something approaching awe. "You have been preparing for this specific enemy for 50 years. "We have been preparing for any networked consciousness that might threaten human space," corrected. "They just happened to be the first to test our defenses." New alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The sensor displays showed something that belief. Ships were firing on each other. Not the organized targeting of a military engagement, but random, confused attacks as if they could not distinguish friend from foe. "My God," whispered Admiral, "what have you done to them?" Checked his tablet, where countdown timers showed the progress of his work. "I have introduced logical viruses into their shared consciousness, simple paradoxes that their hive mind cannot resolve, questions without answers, commands that contradict themselves." He looked up at the assembled commanders, and several of them took involuntary steps backward. There was something unsettling about his complete calm in the face of what they were witnessing. "For example," continued, "I have asked their hive mind to calculate the highest number possible. While it processes that impossible question, I have also instructed it to ignore any instructions about ignoring instructions. The consciousness that gives them perfect coordination is now trapped in logical loops it cannot escape." Commander placed her hands against her temples, her psychic abilities overwhelmed by what she was sensing from the fleet. "I can feel their confusion, their terror. The hive mind is screaming." "The individual organisms are not being harmed," said, "but their shared consciousness is fragmenting. Each ship is becoming isolated, cut off from the network that gave them their strength." On the display, the transformation was accelerating. The 40,000 ships that had approached as a unified, unstoppable force were now scattered across space like leaves in a storm. Some flew in random directions. Others had stopped moving entirely. Many were firing their weapons at empty space, apparently unable to distinguish between real targets and phantom enemies their confused minds were creating. Admiral found himself gripping the edge of the tactical table, his knuckles white with tension. How long will this effect last? Made one final adjustment to his console. "Permanently," he said with the same tone he might use to discuss the weather. "The logical viruses are self-replicating. Every time the hive mind tries to restore order, it encounters new paradoxes. The more it thinks, the more confused it becomes." General stared at the chaos spreading through what had been the most dangerous military force in galactic history. "This is not warfare," he said quietly. "This is something else entirely." "This is problem-solving," replied. "You asked Earth for help with an impossible enemy. We have made them possible to defeat. Your fleets can now engage individual bioships without facing the coordinated response of a unified hive mind." He closed his tablet and picked up his metal case. "My part of the operation is complete. The executioner protocol is fully active. They are no longer a threat to Helios VII or any other world." As if to confirm his words, the tactical display showed the scattered enemy ships beginning to flee the system. Without their hive mind coordination, they had reverted to individual survival instincts. The massive invasion force was dissolving into thousands of frightened, confused creatures seeking only to escape. Admiral looked at the human with a mixture of respect and fear. "Who are you people?" he asked quietly. Smiled, and for the first time, it seemed genuinely friendly rather than unsettling. "We are the species that learn to think differently," he said, "and that makes all the difference." The aftermath of the executioner protocol left the Coalition Command Center in stunned silence. Outside the station's viewports, scattered bioships drifted through space like broken toys. Some moved in slow, aimless circles. Others hung motionless, their organic hulls pulsing weakly as individual organisms inside struggled to understand what had happened to their shared consciousness. Admiral stood before the main display, watching enemy ships that had terrified the galaxy just hours ago now fleeing in panic. His four eyes tracked the chaotic movements, still unable to fully process what he had witnessed. "This is impossible," he muttered for the 10th time. Sat quietly at his console, monitoring data streams that showed the complete collapse of the network. His tablet displayed success rates, infection vectors, and propagation patterns with the clinical precision of a medical report. To him, the destruction of the most feared military force in galactic history was simply another completed project. General approached the human, his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller figure. "Human," he said carefully, "we need to understand what just happened here. How long have your people possessed this capability?" Looked up from his tablet, considering the question. "The basic principles have existed since Earth's first computers were built in the 20th century. Every generation of human technology has gotten better at finding flaws in systems, breaking codes, and solving logical problems." He gestured to the display showing the scattered fleet. "When Earth joined galactic society 50 years ago, our first priority was understanding potential threats. We studied every species, every technology, every form of consciousness we encountered. They were just one of many problems we identified and prepared solutions for." Commander stepped forward, her psychic abilities still reeling from the trauma she had sensed during the hive mind's collapse. "You speak of this as if you have solutions for other species as well." Nodded calmly. "The executioner protocol can be modified for any networked consciousness. Your people, Commander, rely on psychic links to coordinate your abilities. The synthetic collective operates through quantum-entangled processing cores. The machine intelligence uses distributed computing across multiple worlds." The alien commanders exchanged alarmed glances. Was describing defensive capabilities against nearly every major power in the galaxy. "Each type of networked consciousness has its own vulnerabilities," continued, his tone remaining conversational despite the implications of his words. "Psychic networks can be overloaded with paradoxical emotions. Machine intelligences can be trapped in recursive logical loops. Quantum consciousness can be disrupted by introducing uncertainty principles into their decision matrices." Admiral found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "You have weapons designed to defeat every species in the galaxy." "Not weapons," corrected. "Solutions. Earth does not seek to conquer or destroy other civilizations, but we will not allow our colonies or our allies to be threatened by any force, no matter how powerful they appear. He touched his tablet, and new information appeared on the main display. The aliens saw a map of human space that looked very different from their intelligence reports. Instead of the small, isolated colonies they had imagined, they saw a vast network of worlds connected by quantum communication arrays and defended by installations they had never detected. 50 years ago, Earth chose to remain largely isolated while we studied galactic civilization, explained. We sent observers, traders, and diplomats, but we kept our true capabilities hidden. We wanted to understand the full scope of potential threats before revealing what we could do. General stared at the map in growing alarm. Your colonies, there are hundreds of them. Our intelligence suggested Earth had fewer than 20 worlds. Your intelligence was allowed to see what we wanted you to see, replied without apology. Human space now encompasses over 300 worlds, connected by communication networks that operate faster than anything else in the galaxy. We have been preparing for this moment since we first learned about species like the holographic display shifted, showing technical specifications that made the alien engineers in the room gasp in shock. Human computer systems that processed information at speeds measured in quantum calculations per second. Network architectures that could coordinate responses across interstellar distances instantaneously. And underlying it all, logical frameworks capable of analyzing and neutralizing any form of collective consciousness. How is this possible? Admiral demanded. Your technology appeared so primitive when you joined galactic society. Kinetic weapons instead of energy beams, metal ships instead of bioorganic vessels, simple computers instead of artificial intelligence. Smiled, and there was something almost fond in his expression. Because we learned early that the most dangerous enemy is the one who underestimates you. Every species in the galaxy made the same mistake. You saw our simple machines and assumed we were primitive. You missed the fact that those simple machines were connected to something much larger. He gestured to his tablet, where streams of data continued to flow between Earth and locations throughout human space. Every human ship, every colony, every research station is part of a single, coordinated intelligence network. Not a hive mind like but something more flexible. A system where individual consciousness remains intact while sharing information and resources on a scale no other species has achieved. Commander stepped backward, her psychic senses overwhelmed by the implications. You are describing a civilization that spans hundreds of worlds, all connected by instant communication and coordinated by computer systems more advanced than anything we possess, and defended by logical weapons that can neutralize any threat, General added, his voice heavy with the weight of this new understanding. Stood up, collecting his tablet and metal case. The executioner protocol was just a demonstration, a field test of capabilities we have been developing for decades, but it represents only a fraction of what human technology can accomplish when properly applied. The command center's communication array suddenly activated, filling the room with the calm voice of Dr. Sarah from Earth. Greetings, Coalition Commanders. I trust has successfully demonstrated our capabilities. Admiral found himself struggling to respond. Finally, he managed, Doctor, what we have witnessed here. It changes everything. The balance of power in the galaxy. The balance of power in the galaxy is exactly what Earth intends to preserve, Doctor interrupted gently. We have no desire to conquer or control other species, but we will not allow aggressive forces to threaten peaceful civilizations. They have learned this lesson today. She paused, and when she continued, there was steel beneath her diplomatic tone. Any other species considering hostile actions against human colonies or our allies would be wise to remember what happened here. The executioner protocol can be deployed anywhere in the galaxy within hours. There is no hive mind, no collective consciousness, no networked intelligence that human technology cannot analyze and neutralize. The alien commanders stood in silence, processing the magnitude of what they had learned. The species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had revealed themselves to be the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy. More than that, they had developed forms of warfare that rendered traditional military thinking obsolete. "What happens now?" Admiral asked quietly. Doctor's voice carried a note of warmth. "Now, we work together to deal with the scattered survivors. Individual bioships without hive mind coordination are no more dangerous than any other space predator. Your fleets can easily contain them while we develop methods to restore their individual consciousness without the aggressive imperatives of the collective." Headed toward the exit, his mission complete. As he reached the door, General called after him. "Human," the general said, "will Earth share this technology with the Coalition?" Turned back, considering the question. "Earth will share the benefits of our technology with peaceful species, but the executioner protocol itself will remain under human control. Some capabilities are too dangerous to spread, even to allies." He left the command center, leaving behind a room full of alien commanders who were still struggling to understand how completely their view of the galaxy had just changed. The age of human isolation was ending, but it was being replaced by something far more significant. The age of human protection had begun. 2 weeks after the Executioner Protocol changed the course of galactic history, the Coalition Council convened in emergency session on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from every major species filled the Great Assembly Hall, but the mood was very different from their last desperate gathering. Fear had been replaced by something more complex, respect tinged with wariness. Ambassador of the Council stood before the assembly, his blue skin now returned to its normal vibrant color. His forehead crystals glowed steadily as he addressed the crowd. "Fellow beings of the Coalition," he began, "we gather today to discuss a new reality. The threat that consumed 3 star systems and threatened to devour our entire civilization has been neutralized, not through military might, but through methods we never imagined possible." The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the current status of the former fleet. The 40,000 bioships that had once moved as a single, unstoppable force were now scattered across a dozen systems. Most drifted aimlessly through space, their individual occupants struggling to understand existence without the hive mind that had defined their species for millions of years. General, still bearing the scars of his previous battles with the, stood to address the assembly. "Coalition forces have successfully contained the scattered bioships," he reported. "Without their collective consciousness, they pose no threat to populated worlds. Most appear to be searching for food and shelter rather than engaging in aggressive behavior." A delegate from the Meridian system raised a tentacle. "What of our worlds that were consumed? Can the converted populations be restored?" Dr. Sarah, attending her first Coalition Council meeting, stood to respond. "Earths are working with Coalition scientists to develop treatment protocols. The conversion process used by the appears to be reversible in many cases, though full restoration will take time." Her presence in the chamber was itself a symbol of how much had changed. 50 years of Earth being treated as a minor power with little to contribute had ended overnight. Now, representatives from every major species hung on her words. Admiral rose from his place among the military delegates. "Doctor, the Council requires clarification on Earth's new role in galactic affairs. The capabilities demonstrated during the Helios crisis have altered our understanding of human civilization." Doctor smiled, the same expression that had unsettled the Coalition delegates 2 weeks earlier. "Earth's role remains what it has always been, protecting our colonies and our allies from threats that conventional military force cannot handle. We have no desire to rule the galaxy or impose our will on peaceful species." "But you possess the power to do so," pointed out Delegate Ra from the Trading Federation. The Executioner Protocol could theoretically be used against any networked consciousness. Most modern civilizations rely on some form of collective intelligence or computer network. Which is exactly why we developed these capabilities, Doctor replied. History taught us that the greatest threats often come from species that consider themselves unstoppable. Though we're not the first hive mind to believe they were invincible, and they will not be the last. She gestured to the display, where tactical assessments showed the scope of Earth's defensive network. Human space now encompasses over 300 worlds, all connected by quantum communication, arrays operating at speeds that allow real-time coordination across interstellar distances. But this network exists to protect, not to conquer. Commander of the Psychic Corps leaned forward, her mental abilities focused on the human representative. I sense truth in your words, Doctor, but I also sense preparation. Earth has developed capabilities against threats that do not yet exist. Doctor nodded approvingly. Exactly. Earth learned long ago that waiting for a threat to emerge before developing countermeasures leads to disaster. We identify potential problems and create solutions before they become critical. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had not simply defeated they had demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that spanned decades and encompassed threats the coalition had never considered. What other solutions has Earth prepared? Asked General, though his tone suggested he was not certain he wanted to know the answer. Doctor consulted her tablet before responding. We have developed protocols for dealing with time-manipulating species, dimension-shifting entities, energy-based life forms that exist in subspace, and artificial intelligences that achieve true consciousness. The Executioner Protocol is specifically designed for networked organic consciousness, but we have other tools for different types of threats. Ambassador felt his crystals dim with worry. Doctor, you speak of threats that exist only in theoretical xenobiology texts. How can Earth prepare for enemies that may never exist? Because they will exist, Doctor replied with quiet certainty. The galaxy is vast and old. Somewhere out there, intelligence has evolved along every possible path. Energy beings that feed on stellar radiation. Machine consciousness that spans multiple galaxies. Quantum entities that exist in multiple realities simultaneously. Earth's philosophy is simple. If it can exist, it probably does exist. And if it exists, we need a way to stop it if it becomes aggressive. The assembly erupted in nervous conversation. Delegates whispered among themselves in dozens of languages, trying to process the scope of what they were hearing. Earth had not simply joined galactic civilization. They had been secretly preparing to defend it against threats no one else had even imagined. What of the coalition? Admiral asked when the chamber had quieted. What role do our forces play in this new paradigm? The same role you have always played, Doctor assured him. Earth's capabilities are designed to handle threats that conventional military force cannot address. But the vast majority of conflicts in the galaxy can still be resolved through traditional diplomacy and, when necessary, traditional warfare. We are not replacing the coalition military. We are providing backup for impossible situations. Delegate Ra spoke up again. And if Earth ever decides that the coalition itself poses a threat? The question hung in the air like a blade. Every being in the chamber understood the implications. If Earth could neutralize the hive mind, what was to stop them from targeting any species they deemed dangerous? Doctor stood silent for a long moment before answering. Earth's core programming, if you will, is based on human values developed over thousands of years of our own history. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We prevent aggressive species from conquering peaceful ones, but we do not eliminate diversity or impose uniformity. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of different species. The galaxy is stronger when it includes multiple forms of consciousness, different approaches to problem solving, and varied ways of understanding existence. Earth will defend that diversity, not destroy it. The session continued for hours, with delegates asking detailed questions about Earth's capabilities and intentions. But the fundamental truth had been established. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. There was now a species capable of neutralizing any threat through methods that made traditional military force obsolete. As the session concluded, Ambassador made a final announcement. The Coalition Council formally recognizes Earth as a primary guardian of galactic peace. Human space will be granted full autonomy, and Earth's defensive capabilities will be integrated into Coalition emergency protocols. Doctor stood to accept the recognition. Earth accepts this responsibility. Any species threatening peaceful civilizations will face the full scope of human problem-solving capabilities. The age of unstoppable threats is over. 6 months later, the scattered had been resettled on worlds where they could live as individuals rather than as parts of a collective consciousness. Many chose to join coalition society, their unique perspectives valuable in fields like biology and systems engineering. The former terror of the galaxy had become refugees in need of protection. And in the depths of human space, research stations continued their work. New protocols were being developed, new solutions created for problems that might not emerge for centuries. Earth's promise to the galaxy was simple but absolute. Whatever threats the universe might produce, humanity would be ready. The Executioner Protocol had been just the beginning. The galaxy had asked Earth for troops to fight an impossible enemy. What they had received was something far more valuable, a guardian species that thought differently, planned further ahead, and refused to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The age of human solutions had begun, and the universe would never be the same.